So, welcome to the Gospel of Beetlejuice, Alex Brightman.
That's a great job. For those of you watching and listening, Kris was very nervous about doing that perfection introduction. I think you nailed it.
I certainly hope so.
You did it.
But
do
I
it
mean,
one more time. Do it one more. Keep this in, but do it one more time so they can watch you just get even better. Ready and with confidence and gusto, and do it like sort of almost like a monster truck announcer. Okay, whatever that means to you, I'm ready.
Welcome to the Gospel of Beetlejuice, Alex Brightman.
That was, so excellent, and so many people would never, ever take the bait and do it, and you did, and I applaud you for it, and you've enamored me to you so much more by doing that than I already am, by the way.
Oh, well, that's very sweet.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
It is an exciting day. In general.
The title character has arrived.
It is literally your gospel.
He has brought many versions of himself.
Perfect.
Yes, one plush, one Funko.
Oh, perfect. Awesome.
Yes.
Awesome.
Many things abounding in my office / second bedroom.
That's wonderful. So it is the Gospel of Beetlejuice. You are Beetlejuice, which makes you kind of like Jesus. in this conversation. So it's kind of like sitting down with Jesus.
No pressure.
No pressure at all from either side. No.
Right.
So to start off, let's travel back in time a little bit to your first involvement. That was exactly the effect I needed.
I was hoping that you'll add an effect right there.
I don't even think I need to. I think that was perfect. There we go.
Okay, I was just giving you another one.
I'm just going to use that going forward. That's going to be my go-to effect.
Transition. Yeah. That's a transition.
Yeah. It's going to be like an episode of Batman.
That's what I was just thinking. The newspaper swirling.
Yeah.
All right, I'm back in time now.
Okay, so we had talked about this before, and I also heard and read a few things. So had you already left School of Rock when you got the call to audition for Alex Timbers?
As far as I remember it, and my memory is not always the best and also conflates memories together. So the best I can cobble together is after I was completely done, basically. Because 2015, I think, was School of Rock.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I don't know. I think right as I was leaving, I auditioned for the very first workshop of Beetlejuice. But I think I was already out of School of Rock at that point. I don't think I was pulling double duty. I don't think I ever did that during School of Rock. I don't think I ever let myself do that. So from what I remember, I either had just come back from filming a pilot called SMILF, which was on Showtime for a few seasons, and then I did the first reading of Beetlejuice. I think that's the timing of it. And it was a very quick 1 week. A lot of actors do these things, 29-hour readings, which is you're only allowed to rehearse for 29 hours over the course of a week. So they have to really figure it out. It typically rounds out pretty well. But that's including the performances if you have one. So I believe had one. We had a small audience of people. We were just with music stands and doing the best we possibly could with the 29 hours that we had. That was my very first foray into it.
Excellent. So I know that you said that you had received some sides and a Whole Being Dead Thing song demo for the audition.
Yes. It was there was Eddie's demo, the one that has now been since released. I think there actually the one I received might not be on the Demos album. Because I think there is one called Welcome to a Show About Death. That's not called The Whole Being Dead Thing, which is it has a whole other hook, but you can feel a lot of the references from it. But I think that's the one I got, I think. And then I got a very, very, very early scene that is, some of it's still intact, of the Beetlejuice Maitland's pre-Fright of Their Lives scene. And that was the only two scenes I had. I had that song and that scene to prepare the night before, I believe it was, or the evening before, sort of got around 5 p.m. and was very excited about it because it's Beetlejuice. And it's what a cool character to try and adapt. And I got really excited about it. I canceled whatever plans that I had and just had the evening to myself to just like immerse myself as much as I could. I'm not a good sight reader for music, so I just really, really hammered the demo. So Eddie Perfect's, which by the way, Eddie Perfect on the demo, when you listen to that, you're like, why didn't he play Beetlejuice? Like he's so perfectly voiced for that. And then I, try as a comedian, I'm very confident in how I interpret comedy. So I saw the sides that were already hilarious and just was like, I think my job here is to like figure out a voice for the, minute and a half, 2 minutes that I'll be in the room for this and let the words do the talking because it's so funny. I think that the big pitfall, I imagine a lot of people that went in for it were trying to be funny on top of the funny. And I am funny, but the sides that I had were hilarious. So why try to like out funny what's already there? And I think that's what ended up happening. I just sort of brought me into the room, and then beyond the sides in the song, had the luxury because of School of Rock and because of my reputation over the last number of years being on Broadway, had the luxury of chatting with the people in the room, just saying, how's it going? What's going on? Cracking jokes of my own, not for any purpose, just because that's how I am in a room. That's how you know me, right? I mean, it's like I don't turn off necessarily comedy-wise. And so I think that's what sort of enamored Timbers to me, because as he said, this is what his words, not mine, that he was like, we were looking for somebody who could be obviously very funny and very improvisational, but what Alex brought me to the room was some bit of danger, like a bit of like, I'm not 100% sure what's about to come out of this guy's mouth. And that's exciting because that's not something you typically get in musical theater. It's very on the track. It's very like, this is the show you're going to see. But I think that combined with what he knew about School of Rock and how improv was a big vital part of that, I think he sort of felt confident at least giving me that first shot of like, let's see what the hell this guy's going to do in the room. And that just kept working.
It's such an awesome story. It's so awesome that you were involved for a number of years with the show before the first official production in DC. You had also mentioned, I had listened to this on a podcast that was recorded like a year or so ago, that you had recorded a demo of another song or songs from a different songwriter for the show?
Yes.
Okay.
So it wasn't. No, I had recorded. So you're 95% correct.
Okay.
But this is such a fun story. I'm so glad you brought this up. When I was in Washington D.C. doing a show called Soon at the Signature Theater right after I did Matilda. This is before School of Rock. So I am in the middle of that run, and that show was written by the wonderful and fabulous and multi-talented, multi-hyphenate Nick Blameyer, who wrote Glory Days and is a buddy of mine. And Nick wrote this show that we were doing in DC. So what a luxury, getting to do shows with your friends. He pulls me aside, me and a couple of the cast members aside. He goes, I need your help on this thing. I'm speccing, which means basically what writers do to audition. They're writing a spec song. I'm writing a couple spec songs to try and be the composer lyricist for this new Beetlejuice musical. This is before School of Rock.
Oh, wow.
This is before the out of town of School of Rock. This is right after Matilda. This is like 2013, 14. So this is before anything. And I was like, awesome. And I know they had reached out to it. Like Ryan Scott Oliver, I think was reached out to. And I think maybe a Joe Iconis. I don't know if I'm getting that 100% right. But Nick was one of the people that was throwing in a couple songs. So I, along with, Jessica Hirschberg, now married to Jessica Fontana, and a number of other people in that show, we just got together like buddies, and Nick had written these songs. He wrote one song for Lydia called Dark Room, based on the line, My Whole Life is a Dark Room. Gorgeous song. Nick is such a talented songwriter. And then he wrote a song called Mauve, M-A-U-V-E, from the movies where they say, the walls should be mauve, and they spray paint it. And it's the introduction basically to the entire Dietz family. Brilliant, very, very choppy, very Sondheimy way of introducing them. And so I sang Charles Dietz, I think, in the demo. I never sang a Beetlejuice song. He did have one, but I think Nick sang it. And I can't remember. I think it was called It's Showtime or something like that. I think it was something close to that. It was hilarious. And then when it happened, I was like, I remember, I think I had them at some point on my computer. I might still.
It's an awesome story.
And it's before School of Rock. So that's how long these things take, right? And Eddie was the last piece of the puzzle. Eddie, they had spent Warner Brothers, they pay writers a lot of the time to spec a song. So it's a nice thing. Like a writer will come in and try to do something, they'll get paid for their work, and then maybe if it doesn't work out, they still got paid and they tried their best. At that point, that long in the process for Beetlejuice, they had gone through so many different composers, ideas and writing duos and things like that. Anthony and Scott remained the entire time, the original book writers, and so did Alex Timbers. And Eddie really wanted this job. And Warner Brothers said, we do not have any money to pay you. And Eddie said, I don't want money. I want to show you my songs. And Eddie wrote Dead Mom, it didn't change from that moment until the show. I mean, he changed some lyrics, but it was that song. And then I believe he wrote the whole Being Dead thing, I think, and sent him in for free. Just said, have him. And he did it like under his coffee table because he needed like the sound to be muted. He did his vocals like under a coffee table, like crunched in there, and sent him in. Like I tell every person that I ever coach and teach, I go do it. Just do it. Don't wait for somebody to pay you to do your thing. And if it's a perfect example, Eddie Perfect was like, I'm right for this. And if the hurdle is them paying me or not, that's not even a big deal to me. And look how well that worked out.
Yeah. Because
he not only got the job, but turns out he was the perfect guy to write this show. No pun intended.
No, how many times can we say perfect?
I mean, seriously, it's so hard.
Yeah. So good transition. My next question is actually kind of about Eddie.
Horrible guy to work with, really mean, only cares about money, egotistical. Yep. Okay, what did you want to know about it?
No, so actually I got to talk to him back in August, and he actually revealed to me that the demos would be released. So I was like keeping this kind of under wraps for a while.
So you knew before I knew.
Listen,
you did. I knew the day before it came out. So you knew before I knew. Lucky you.
Well, it was crazy because I didn't know when. He didn't even know when. So when they started to say, we'll be doing special behind the scenes things during October, I'm like, I feel like it's going to be sometime around Halloween. But so I thought it was a great idea because that never happens. The only time that you ever really get a demo is if you obtain it not legally, or you get or it's like a bonus track on like a reissue of a cast recording.
Right.
So of the cut songs that are on that demo, there's I think 24 songs on the release demo. Of the cut songs, did you get to actually perform any of those during the readings and workshops?
What a great question. First of all, before I answer that question, I think every composer should do what Eddie did. I think that not just because the fans want it. I don't think that's the point. It's great. And I think that people that want to, devour material, there's material to be devoured. Every composer, for every 10 songs in a Broadway musical, there are 75 ones that did not make it, or versions. But I think it's fun in another way as a creative to watch somebody's process in real time. Like in I Gotta Get Out of This House, which I never sang, and I heard about it, Beetlejuice's original opening number, one of the original opening numbers, it's Maitland's 2.0. I mean, if you listen to it's, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's so interesting to me to like that kind of idiosyncratic stuff of like reaching back into the thing that didn't work and pulling the one thing you liked and making that a wonderfully working song in Barbara 2.0. That's what fascinates me about the demos, aside from the fact that I just love that stuff. The behind the scenes stuff is like, and sort of the stuff that never made it, the cutting room floor stuff, outtakes, all that kind of stuff. That's the real gold. That all being said, I don't believe there is a cut song that's not on the album that I sang in the show called Dead Bird, but that's now used as the Thanksgiving anthem.
Yes.
But that was in the show. That was in the show. That was made at a couple performances, in fact, in DC before they cut it. So a few lucky audiences were able to see Dead Bird live and in person before it became sort of a bona fide Thanksgiving cut. I know one of the whole Being Dead things. We sang versions of it, so that just made there were tons of versions of that, but it was essentially the same song. I never sang the whole. I never sang Life's Not Great or Death's Not Great. There were a few that were in the show. I mean, Mama Would.
Yep.
The Children We Didn't Have. I can't remember the other ones, but there was a couple that I never saw, but I knew that existed in one reading, Delia's TED Talk. That existed, I think, in the one reading I didn't do, which was before I even joined the company.
Okay.
So, oh no, there was one more. It's it's one of my favorite because it was performed so wonderfully, which is "Sign Yourself Over to Me." Charles Dietz's big like "Marry Me Delia" song. It was so wrongly placed in the show, and it stopped the action completely. But to me, there's just something so Mel Brooks about this big character singing this wonderful ballad, a wonderful sort of waltz that had dancing lawyers involved. This existed in a number of the workshops. There were dancing lawyers, like dancing divorce, like marriage lawyers that were dancing with prenuptial agreements, and things like that. But it just was so grand for almost no payoff, except for the fact that Adam Danheiser, killed it. Tears running down my face by the end of the song. It shows his white privilege in a way that I thought was so on a pedestal and funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a high. Not that you asked, but that brought up a highlight. But no, I never got a chance to sing a ton of those. The Box was in the show.
Yes. Yeah.
The Box was in DC, I believe. I think
a very shortened version of it was in DC.
Very shortened version, and then I'm not sure if I Am Very Good at Running Cults ever made it onto stage, but it definitely made it to the rehearsal room with massive choreography. And Otho also wrote a segue for a good chunk of the development. He was on a segue the whole time. That then Beetlejuice stole at the end, or like took it after Otho died, and was like didn't know how to work it, and that's how Beetlejuice flies himself back in the netherworld. He's like, "How does this work?" And he goes backwards into the netherworld door, and that's how he kills himself. Lots of fun little moments that don't exist anymore.
Wow. So Alex Timbers said that musical theater is the most collaborative art form he's ever experienced. And from everything that I've heard and read about the creation of this show, the creative team and the company of the show were all thoroughly invested in bringing the show to Broadway, and also open to change. And so, with a show like this, obviously lots of changes happened along the way. Yeah. So what are some of your thoughts on the collaborative nature of this specific production, and how that managed to then shine through to the audience every night?
What a great question, and what a great tip of the cap to the people that genuinely deserve the applause every night, not us. The people that we wouldn't be seen, heard, lit, all those things without these incredible people that work their asses off and never get seen. They're a line in a page somewhere, and they're three-dimensional people who are like as creative as you get. I agree with Alex Timbers. I think musical theater, not theater in general, I think musical theater is the most collaborative art form there is. And not just because it's the actors and the director and the audience. Beetlejuice is the perfect example of something you can only do in a theater. Our Beetlejuice. I don't think the film version of our musical would work as well. I think that, a cartoon version would be great, but I just think that it's a theater piece. And I think what's cool is that when you can get all the cylinders running together, meaning like lighting and sound and effects and projection and all those things that running together, that's really great. But what Beetlejuice did one step extra was that not only was everybody working towards a similar goal, which is your hope, and you always, there's in every show I've ever done, there's always been like one group or one department that just like they get it but they can't get there, and you're like, come on, like you're pulling them along. Not only did we nail that first part, but every department, because of Alex Timbers, solely due to him, because of how he led this ship, they were not only on the same page, but on the same tone of our show. Like our show hit a very specific tone, comedically and emotionally. Unlike other comedies, unlike other dramas, it hit a very weird and wacky vaudevillian type tone. And our lighting department knew what that meant. Our sound effects department knew that this sound effect is wacky, but is it our kind of wacky, and would come through and have to do another one. So like when the projection and the lights worked together, they were making themselves laugh. Like that stuff is when we knew the show was going to be something great, because our show, lights could tell a joke in our show. Certain blackouts, certain, the flash dance moment on the, on Adam's lap. That is an amalgamation of me, script, sound, projection, and lighting. It's 5 departments for a 0.5 second bit that has to work like that or it won't crush. So I love that stuff. And what was the other part of your question? Were there things that
So how did the collaboration shine through to the audience?
Oh, well, okay. Because so also knowing that the audience is present, right, in every show. Like, we're aware there's an audience. We don't just turn off. Like, we know there's an audience as actors. But I think part of this tone thing is that every department had to also be self-aware that there was an audience. So we were playing for the audience. So many shows are like, the fourth wall is so up and made of concrete, and it is up to you to sort of peek through. Our show is like, the whole fourth wall comes down before the show begins. And it's like, if, I was surprised at some point nobody didn't come up on stage at that. It's like, we wanted a show that felt like it reached beyond the footlights a lot. A show that felt like not necessarily a show, but more like an immersive experience without touching. Just because I get, anxiety when somebody tries to, walk on the stage. But I just think that, like, you could hear it working too. Like, here's the collaboration also was fluid, because during previews, during Washington, D.C., before, even when we opened, that when things weren't working, the audience was a great teller of that. Like, if something just wasn't working, we never blamed the audience. We were like, okay, what can we do? So they were a wonderfully big part of our show, of feedback and instant feedback with laughter and applause or the lack thereof. Tells you a lot. And so I think that collaboration doesn't just stop at the creative departments. I think with Beetlejuice in specific, the collaboration was with the audience as well. The collaboration was one for one with the people that love our show, because it needs to bounce back. We're not a show that can just put it out there and then let it be. We need the energy to come back at us for the show to keep running. It's like a good car. All the pistons need to be firing, and for that to happen, it can't just be our side of things. So I think we did our job, but we also knew that every department was jumping out of a plane, hopefully the audience being there is a net, And
I think that...
Not a bad metaphor.
No, it was a great metaphor. And I think that the reactions from the audience, not just, in the moment, not just with applause and laughter, etc., but also, the fact that the fandom just exploded, and the fact that you had people coming back multiple times, dressing up as characters, not just characters, not just generic Beetlejuice characters, but like specifically characters from the show, like
from the musical. Yeah,
exactly. I think that connection was so amazing, and you really don't see that.
That's a new thing. That's like a newer thing that I've experienced with shows, and I think when the show kind of extends beyond the theater, is such an interesting thing now. Much easier, obviously, now with social media and Instagram, and it's allowed to. I mean, it can easily. I mean, you could create a mosaic of the Winter Garden with how many pictures have been taken of it at this point. So it's like the world outside of it. And you're right. The fandom did this thing where they weren't just fans of it in the show or around the show. They were fans of it way beyond the show and created their own groups and own fan fiction. It became its own Beetlejuice universe, Yep. And so that was really fun for me to discover, because I knew did things like that. I was aware that, like, fan fiction and fan groups and fan clubs and whatever, people make friends because they like the same thing. That I knew, but I didn't know how deep it went with the Beetlejuice stuff until I started, meeting more and more people during this quarantine, by the way. It was like during these one-on-one things or teaching classes and hearing about, I never knew what Discord was. And now I know a little bit more about it, but know how wonderful that is for the people that want to keep in touch and connect over something that they nerdily love, to a point that it's like, I say this lovingly, that it's like sick, because I feel the same way. When I love something, I love it sickeningly and obsessively. So I like this thing. I like that when you say collaboration, I think you're right. It's not like fan and performer. It's not what it is. It's like this collaboration of the love of a show, this obsessive collaboration of like the world of something. I'm all for it. The caveat there is I'm all for all of that, no matter what, as long as it never crosses a line about, being real world creepy, Yeah. The idea of like that we're all friends is not really a concept that I think is meant to be created. We're all friendly, and I love that. Nothing makes me happier than to walk out of a stage door and be surrounded by a bunch of friendly, wonderful, interesting, unique, three-dimensional people. It's sort of like every once in a while, and you've seen it, there's like a 0.5, 0.2% of that big group I'm talking about that truly believes that we're all friends. And that's where it kind of becomes, I think, a small problem that can grow if it's not taken care of. But for the most part, and I've been in a number of shows, the Beetlejuice fandom, the Netherlings, whatever you want to call them, I like that name kind of. I couldn't think of a better one when they chose it. I was like that's what they're calling them, and then it kind of stuck. Like now I kind of get it. But I've said this before on the record too, and I'm happy to, I've said it behind everyone's back. It's easily one of the warmest fan ensembles of people that I've had the pleasure of getting to know, getting to see, getting to witness their artwork and their obsessiveness for the show. Again, I say that lovingly and as one of you. But I hadn't seen that in other shows, candidly. Like, the Wicked fandom, yes, they're nice, but there was a bit of like frenzy to that kindness. And not everybody, but when it was there, it was very, very potent. With Beetlejuice, I'd be hard pressed to go weeks, at that stage door and find somebody crazy that I would deem crazy. And it's a pretty high bar because we can deal with a lot of stuff. But for the most part, everyone was so nice and so warm. It's like one of the main things I miss. And it was one of those heartbreaking things when I had to stop doing the stage door for a minute, that I missed dreadfully. It was like one of those things that it cost me to miss the stage door because I love everybody there. It's so much fun.
Absolutely. And you said that you had to, obviously, when things started to go a little crazy back in the spring, and restrictions were put on stage dooring, and then eventually Broadway stopped. The pause button was pressed. The pause button has not been unpressed.
No. Somebody still has their goddamn thumb on the pause button.
Yeah, Grandma can't figure out how to unpause it.
It's Grandma. It's always Grandma.
Yeah, it is. So a few weeks ago, you made some jaws drop, and when you mentioned that the show is definitely coming back to Broadway.
It already has come back. We've been there every night for the last 2 weeks. Nobody's come up. We've been doing the show.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I was really close to you guys the other day.
Ask your question. I'm excited to answer.
So I think everyone pretty much knew, even back in December when it was announced that, you guys are being forced out of the Winter Garden. I think we all pretty much knew there's no way this is the end of the story. This is like the pinnacle of success and, people, loving the show and everything. And, there was just so much for the show that it's like, there's no way this could possibly end. Yeah. So I think we all kind of knew, like, once Broadway shut down, we were like, well, I guess maybe we won't get our June final show at the Winter Garden, but hopefully when, Broadway reopens, something will happen. So I think that, reopening in a new theater was inevitable, but I'm sure you can't give any details, but is there anything that you could say about the future of the show?
Sure. I love, it is funny when you made jaws drop because there's something Andy Kaufman and sort of like absurd just because, you could say whatever you'd like, it's like, I could just be like, I'm running for president and like on Twitter and somebody of the, however many, I don't know how many followers I have, I know it's over 50,000, but 49,989 of them are going to go, okay. And then like 12 of them or 11 of them are going to go, he's running for president. Oh my God, he's running for president. He's because he said it. So I always find it funny to just sort of every once in a while toss something out there because it really isn't hurting anybody. It isn't. If it's hurting you, that's not on me because it shouldn't hurt you by me saying, yeah, we're coming back. Of course we are. In my opinion, and the little I know and the lot I know about, Broadway and how it works and stuff like that, it's a very, very feasible, probable, realistic thing, optimistically, that Beetlejuice will return because of what you just said, because it had this sort of meteoric thing going with it, and it was at this pinnacle of success, and it didn't have any sign of stopping. Even with, by the way, and this is something I can say, even with the Music Man debacle, if you want to call it that, it's show business. It's not great, but it's what it is. Even with that, it really wasn't a problem. It was like we did have a theater in place. It was like if there were no pandemic, which there is, But if there weren't one, if we were living in a weird alternate timeline where this just didn't exist and life went on as normal, the Music Man would be in the Winter Garden and Beetlejuice would already be at another theater running successfully. So that is what's heartbreaking, is that it was primed and ready to go right away. We maybe would have like a couple weeks lapse because we'd have to figure out new tech in a new theater, but it fit our show. We didn't have to lose anything. We would be up and running. So that's what leads me to, that's why I say so confidently, of course it'll come back. It was like already ready to. So really what we're waiting on, what I can say, and this is not news, is we're waiting on how many people can fit into a theater without losing their fucking minds. And so it's like, and again, I'm one of those people, by the way. I have friends that have gotten sick and passed away from the coronavirus. And I'm not alone. I'm not a unique situation there, but I'm a person that absolutely now thinks about, what am I going to go into a 1,200 seat theater with people I don't know and can't interview? No way. So, I think we're waiting on science, as we should be. And we're doing the best we can. I know, with nothing is certain. I hope people, when I say things like, yeah, of course it's coming back, that nothing is certain. We don't know if we're going to all be here tomorrow. So it's like, I say those things because why not? One, it's not hurting anybody. Two, it's probably true. Three, when and if it comes back, it's going to be much longer than we all think, just to be clear. But when it comes back, it'll be back. We're not going to be doing some weird version of Beetlejuice. It's going to be Beetlejuice. We'll be back. It'll be exciting. And we just need to figure out when. The when is the problem.
Yeah.
But the what and the how we all have that figured out completely. It's just when. So I am optimistic about it. The one caveat I will say is, depending on when, I don't know who will all be available. I don't think anybody can guarantee that if the show comes back, then all of us will too. I think all of us would love to, but that's just not how careers work. Yeah. I'm already working on new stuff. I already had been working on new stuff. So if some of those things catch fire and I'm working on a couple things that really do conflict with an opening of a new Beetlejuice, unfortunately, I wouldn't be able to just say goodbye to this thing and go to Beetlejuice. But nothing would make me happier to do the show. If I got to at least open it back up, would be like bliss, because it is easily the most fun I've had on the stage of any of the shows I've done combined. Long-winded answer, but
that is saying a lot. I mean, that was a great answer, and that is definitely saying a lot. And we can absolutely tell from the audience side that you're loving it. So
yeah, of course. And also, just for anybody, I joke and have this sort of sarcastic and sardonic persona here and there. Anybody who genuinely was like, like feeling a little let down that I was being flippant about the return of Beetlejuice, I apologize. And I hope that you don't feel hurt because of something that I said flippantly. That's all. I'm not making fun of you. I just want to make sure that, I understand people are different. In being inside of it, it is less of a big deal for me to say something like that. So I don't know, I don't have anything that I can't relate to those types of people that really take things to heart and go, it's my thing, So if you are one of those people and you did feel a little betrayed by me sort of rolling my eyes by saying, yeah, well, of course we'll come back, then I apologize.
Yeah, this is an exclusive apology from Tony nominee Alex Brightman.
I think apologies are not only wonderful, but they should be said more. I think nothing makes, this is a totally different topic, but just now that we're here, when people, get, he, stole money from it. I don't know. He was abusive, verbally abusive to somebody, and then somebody demands an apology, and the person's response is, "I have nothing to apologize for." I'm like, just say sorry. Like, how weak are you? Or just like apologize. Like, yeah. I don't know. I think it's so strange. I think apologies are lovely.
Apologies like kindness is very easy. It's not costing you anything.
And on the other side of it, when somebody gives you the apology you're demanding, you have to accept it. You can't say it wasn't good enough. It will never be. If you're demanding it, the apology will never be good enough. So the fact that they're giving it to you is has to be enough. It all of a sudden has to be your thing. We're not even talking about Beetlejuice anymore.
Hey, it's life. So it is Beetlejuice in its own way. You had mentioned earlier that about the Eddie Perfect demos that you thought that he would make a great Beetlejuice.
Oh yeah.
When I talked to him, I asked him straight out, if it goes to Australia, which it clearly will eventually, would you like to play the role? And he said absolutely. So,
yeah.
But as far as you playing the role in a different production, would you want to reprise it at least temporarily in like a tour or the West End production?
Tour, maybe. But that has nothing to do with wanting to do the show. That has everything to do with everything outside of the show. Travel, my wife, my dog, that is not just as simple as packing up and going anymore. It used to be. But I never went on tour, so I think I might have missed that boat a little bit. However, I do think if they would be so kind to allow me to play some of the bigger sit-down cities, then I would 100% do like Chicago, LA, whatever, something like that. Maybe do San Francisco because it's where I'm from. So that'd be cool. West End, 1000%. I would pay to do the West End. I wouldn't even need to be paid. I would pay them to let me do it. No, I mean, West End is, when you do your contracts for Broadway, they sort of also wrap up things like if there is a production in the West End, they have to ask you first. Those kind of things like exist in contracts, in certain contracts. And so I would love to be asked. I know that I think I have to be. And I hope I'm available. Oh my God, I would, because I think American comedy and British comedy are two different things for sure. I think that there's like a different sentimentality. There's a different, there are different lines to cross and not cross in both. I think Beetlejuice does can kind of skip over both sides of that. I think that the British audiences would eat Beetlejuice up because it's dark. And I think that's kind of one of their things that that taps into most of their humor as far as I know and have experienced. Darker equals funnier. So, or like, a little more madcap and things like that. I would love to see how Beetlejuice plays in front of a British audience. Truly. I think they would eat it up.
I think it would be great. That would be hilarious.
And I would need about two things. I'm shooting my shot here now because I'm not guaranteed these, but when it happens in Korea, I need to be there on opening night. I am so fascinated by the idea of it being in Korea and cannot wait to see what they're going to do with it. Also, I've never seen the show, so that would be my first experience, which would be like crazy.
That would be crazy.
It would be so awesome. And then two, when Eddie plays Beetlejuice, I mean, I'll fly all the Netherlands on private jets.
Oh, perfect. Wow.
Yep, using my own money. This is a verbal contract.
Wow.
That I will fly everybody to Australia and we will tip that thing into the ocean.
Wow. Maybe not the last part, but
no, that's contingent on that. If you're not cool with that happening, then the flights have been canceled. Oh, so in fact, you know what? I'm canceling the flights.
Oh, wow. All right. Well,
I'm back on it. Sorry, everyone.
Wow. Well, there's your second apology.
I'm a man of my word. I just change my words constantly.
Yeah, I'm all in for Eddie. Or any variation of the show in Australia because it'll give me an excuse to go to Australia.
Same.
I've never been, and I've never been to South Korea either, so I really want to go.
Same.
Depending on restrictions that we have next summer,
right?
Who knows what's going to be like? But
right.
I feel like they really have it together over there. I know a couple of people who were in the international tour of Phantom, and they were able to play in South Korea.
That's so crazy to me.
Yeah.
It's crazy and infuriating to me when I see or hear that theater is happening in other places and that it's happening on a big scale.
Yeah.
It makes me really sad and it makes me really frustrated at America because it could have been that way. I saw pictures the other night of like this big opening of Mary Poppins, full theater, standing on their feet, big cast of 30 people on stage. I was like, when was this from? And they were like, last night. I was like, last night? I was like, every theater in Midtown is collecting dust and being home to rodents, and they're doing that? We've massively messed up.
Yep.
Makes me crazy. I cannot wait to have theater back. It's driving me nuts.
Same. Absolutely.
It wasn't driving me as nuts until I saw other countries making it happen. And then I was like, you have got to be kidding me.
I agree.
We're a bunch of idiots. We are the worst.
Clearly. Well,
clearly.
Hopefully things are going to start turning around.
Yeah, I'm hoping. I'm hopeful. I am hopeful sooner than later, actually. Now that this sort of more and more vaccine news is happening, I think the timeline genuinely might be a little shorter than we all thought. So that's nice.
Yeah. To
what else?
Veer in a slightly different direction.
Sure.
So everyone was in love with, myself included, the Teen Titans Go episode.
All right.
And I think that it was such a great little homage to your performance in the show. And I mean, I've never really watched the show that much, but I had to tune in for that episode, and I just thought it was just hilarious. But
Thank you.
So as far as the as Beetlejuice in other
mediums,
yeah, exactly. Will we see more animated Beetlejuice? Will we see more Beetlejuice, sort of breaking out from the stage and onto the screen in some way?
What I know, which again, I'm not hiding anything necessarily. I just, I know as little as a lot of people because so many things are up in the air. Teen Titans Go was not done because of the coronavirus. Teen Titans was recorded a year and a half before we put it on television. So that was just the plan anyway. That was a blast, by the way, just to acknowledge that. It was like so much fun, and I had no clue. You said you watched a couple episodes. I hadn't watched 30 seconds of that show, and just did this. I watched a little bit before I came into the studio just to get the idea of the show. But my whole mandate there was just do your thing from the show because I was already doing it. So I came in, there was a script. We got to collaborate with the directors and writers, and I got to help, with a couple punch-ups on the show. I'm so happy with how it turned out. I was so excited to watch it. I've never really seen myself or heard myself do cartoons, so that's pretty fun. So there's a nice little precursor to this other show that I'm working on right now on Netflix, which I thought would have been the first thing I would have seen myself on, but it was cool to see the Beetlejuice thing. I know that there is another animated thing in the works. That has not happened yet. I know that it is in the ether. What it is, I can't tell you because I have I'd be the first person to spoil something because it's like, what are they going to do? Sue me, fire me? I'm already fired. I don't have a show to be fired from. And, but I don't think they know even what it is just yet, but the idea of it is very fun. And so I think, content will not run out. With Beetlejuice, they're always thinking about it. I'm always getting a phone call here and there from producers, from the writers being like, hey, we're thinking about this. Hey, we're thinking about this. And, sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't because they're like everybody else scrambling for ideas, for content to keep this buzz alive. But yeah, no, I think that there's a couple things happening Beetlejuice wise that will, certainly not disappoint. I just don't know when they won't disappoint. It's like, that's the only thing I don't know. Look at this all of a sudden, just like speaking of Jesus, look at this light that just decided to come in, my children.
Wow.
But yeah, it really turned into a beautiful day here. It started a little gloomy doomy, and look at this. Should I close my window? Is it crazy? Hang on, let me see what this looks like. That is a little better. Is that a little better or is that worse?
No, it's better.
It's more uniform. It's less. Yeah. I was feeling like I almost felt like I was about to be raptured in a way. That was almost sort of.
Yeah, it was very biblical. I liked it. It was very appropriate.
You would have had some great footage. Exclusive Alex Brightman raptured in the apocalypse.
Wow.
Viewed by upwards of 17 people. Let's see. David Josephsberg is still alive, which is great.
Good.
Yep, that's great. I know a lot of people had him on their death pool, so that's nice.
Wow.
He's still here. I don't know, I'm making all that up, but no, I don't know. We're all very just to say it again, and I can't say it enough, is that it's just like doing this thing with you, Kris. This is the reason, not this, I didn't know this would exist, but things like this are the reason why I continue to do theater and want to be an artist and be creative. It's not to be interviewed at all. Not what I'm talking about. It's to just talk about the thing I'm obsessed with. It's to talk to other people who are obsessed as I am, or even maybe more obsessed with things than I am, because I find no problem with it. Again, I have lines that shouldn't be crossed, obviously, but I love when people, I love theater so much, and I love the shows that we put on so much. So when people watch these things and share these things and talk about these things, it warms my heart in a way that is very hard to describe, because it reaches back to the 8-year-old me that really loved the idea of maybe wanting to do this, but like, does anybody think this is cool? You know, like it's like, because I came up in a place, I came up in a very, obviously very accepting household, and I came up in a very liberal California town. That's not what I'm talking about, but musical theater when I was 8 and 9 was not cool. It wasn't like a cool thing on television. Smash didn't exist. Glee didn't exist. It just wasn't a thing where like musical theater equaled cool. Like, it was not cool. And so I was made fun of. And so time after time after time when I was younger, until I started to have more confidence in myself and what I was doing, there was a lot of that. Like, is anyone going to like this? Like, is anybody going to share how much I love this? And now, this many years later, and it's probably felt this way now for almost 15, 20 years, not only do people love it, but there's so many people that love it. And so I love doing this stuff, and I love to perpetuate that love of the obsession, and being able to talk about it in specific, you know, to a show that I've done is a miracle. I never thought I'd be on the barrel end of an interview on anything. So it's nice that you thought of me. 1, it's 2, it's nice that you're doing this. And 3, I'm excited to see what else you get out of this. I hope nobody talks shit about me. That, you know what?
I mean, if they do, you'll know. So,
I'll know, because and if I find out, they talk about being raptured. They're done. No,
you'll smite them.
I will smite them, since I am Jesus Christ Almighty. No, just to speak on that for 1 second before I go, is like, I have been in a lot of shows. I've been in 6 shows on Broadway, but that's 6 out of, I don't know, 70 shows that I've done in my whole life, like small ones, big ones, community theater, regional theater, readings, workshops. If you include the readings and workshops, God, it's probably like 150 things I've done. But out of all of those, everybody has that. There's a big cliche when people are like, we're more than a cast, we're a family, And then, you're done with the show, and 6 months later, you haven't called anybody from that cast, and you're like, I guess we're not really that much of a family. So, which is fine. I mean, that's like if you were a family with every cast that you had, Christmases and Thanksgiving would be completely insane. So, what I will say though, and it's maybe the very first time I have felt this way, and I loved School of Rock, and there was a family dynamic there for sure, and everybody knows how much I love them, and we still keep in touch. The Beetlejuice thing, simply by virtue of having the 4.5-ish years to build it together and then put it on together and then watch it kind of work together, that family, that is a family that I have caught up with and kept in touch with throughout these last 9 months, and have seen over this, over Zoom, and made sure we were okay, and went through the Black Lives Matter movement resurgence again, and went through this election. And so it was nice to have this group of people that you were making beautiful art with. And then remember that outside of that art, there were beautiful, wonderful people that you actually did want to hang out with. So, we say it a lot that we're a family, but we really, I mean, genuinely, if this was my family of choosing, I'm very okay with it, because they were all a bunch of superstars, and I miss them like crazy. I miss them more than doing the show, to be quite honest. I miss going to a place every night and just seeing my friends. Not because I need to see a bunch of people. I do not. If anybody knows me, I'm very good on my own. But this specific group of people made me feel funnier, made me feel more creative, and made me want to be more creative and funny. And so it's just a group of people that you don't get every once in a while. So that's one of the other reasons I'm looking forward to the idea of it coming back, is getting that thing back. So, I'm a nice guy.
This is true. You are. You're right.
No, I don't have much else to say. I was happy that we did this, and
Me too.
Yeah, definitely. It boosted my Tuesday.
Oh, that's
and
so
probably
sweet.
My week, and probably the end of my year, to be quite honest. I mean, I know there's not much of it left, but no, I'm always thrilled to see you, and I've known you for a very long time.
I think it's about 12-ish years.
12-ish is probably right. I was going to say 13, but I imagine you know better than me. But yeah, no, I'm psyched to see you don't age, which is amazing. I've now looked like 8 different people since you've known me.
I mean, but I could still see. Oh my God, that's Alex Brightman. Like, I can't. It's still Alex Brightman. I mean,
thank you very much. I hope we get to do many, many more of these over the many, many more years we're around.
That sounds great.
I wish you luck with the best of the Gospel of Beetlejuice, as Beetlejuice and the Gospel himself.
Thank you.
And I'm so happy for you, and I'm happy that you're having a good time and doing great stuff during this quarantine. It's a great thing. It's a rare thing too, so keep doing it.
Same here, and I'm very happy to see what you produce with all your writing and whatnot, and Dead India and everything. I'm very excited.
I will not. I promise you this. I will not be shy about it. If I know something I can tell you, I will tell everybody. So, you know, yeah, you'll just take a look out for it. I will be. I don't know when this is going out. I don't know when you're putting this out, but if you are putting this out before January, then just look out this January, maybe on your television screens, for an Alex Brightman experience. So, one episode, one show, but it's an exciting one, and I'll let people know about it.
Okay.
All right.
Good to know.
Well, I'm gonna go walk my dog again.
All right. Well, say hi to him, and
I will.
From
Kevin. Kris says hi. He's dead asleep. He didn't move an inch.
Perfect.
Yeah.